Welcome to the Gemini Baby Podcast. Hi, hello. I'm your host, Divinity Jen. Thank you so much for joining me for the 72nd episode of my podcast. This is the place where we dive deeply into music, mysticism, pop culture, and so much more. We celebrate the duality of life and the cosmic chaos that comes with it. Hello, my friends. I am so excited for you guys to hear this week's episode because yes, not that any of you were asking, but this is my long lost One Direction episode. If you guys have been following me since 2023, y'all know I actually already did this episode. However, back in 2023, I was able to include music in my episode, which is why half of season one is not available anywhere except on Spotify, because Spotify used to have something called Music and Talk, which is where they allowed us to include music in our podcast episodes. With that being said, I took the L when they decided to remove music from podcasts. And unfortunately, I am not able to download any of those episodes without re-editing them completely because Spotify gives it to me in snippets. I can't just download the episode without the music. And unfortunately, back in 2023, I put out this episode. However, I took it temporarily down to re-edit it. And unfortunately, I did not get it back up in time because by then, Spotify removed Music and Talk completely. And so I never got to re-upload this episode. I never got to re-listen to this episode. And so this is my one and only long lost Gemini Baby episode. And of course, it is the One Direction one. However, I do believe in divine timing. And so we are going to redo it. I'm going to share with you guys my journey of getting into the music industry and how One Direction was very much the catalyst for that happening. However, before we get too deep into the episode, I do want to do our regularly scheduled announcements. As always, if you guys are interested in booking a consultation with me, whether that is music business guidance, such as if you're an indie artist and you want tips on your career, or you are an aspiring music industry professional, such as a fangirl wondering how you can get your fan account and convert it into actual music industry experience, my friend, I got the consultation for you. Go to geminibaby.com/consultations and you guys can book with me there. I do offer 3 different types of consultations, such as a Zoom where we can talk one-on-one. And then the second consultation is a written consultation where, how many times can I say consultation? The second one is a written consultation where you guys can ask me any questions and I will send it back in writing. And then the last option is a 10-minute video recording from me where I will essentially answer whatever question you have. And for those of you who are not just interested in music business, I also offer astrology and tarot readings because, of course, this is Gemini Baby. We are bridging the gap between the musical and the mystical, if you guys did not hear the intro. And so I do offer consultations for those as well. As always, I do have the official Gemini Baby playlist where I give, every week I give music recommendations to you guys. So you guys can go listen to that playlist and find all the songs that I and my guests are recommending there, on top of other fun Gemini Baby playlists. And then I also have the Gemini Baby Patreon. It's been a little bit of a slow burn this year getting the Patreon launched. I was hoping to have my ducks in a row a little bit more. And so I have lowered the price to get in, which is kind of just a general support right now until I'm able to have a bit more time to really get it moving. And so as of right now, until the end of the year, the Gemini Baby Patreon is $5. You guys are basically my founding members. And so those $5 really do go a long way. Just think of it as buying me a coffee, buying me maybe a cup of coffee. I don't even think I can get like a Dutch Bros or like a matcha for that cheap. So it really does go a long way, and I'm so deeply appreciative. And then I think that's all of my announcements. Yeah, I think that's all of it. Usually when I do more of like the astrology and tarot reading episodes, I'm like going down the list of things. But that is not what this episode is about today. We are talking about One Direction. I am warning you guys now. I may cry in this episode. I don't think there's ever been a podcast episode where I like full blown cried. Maybe one, but like barely. This might be the one for more reasons than one. And so In full transparency, I did not script this episode. I did not outline it. I'm just going to talk, really just talk off the top of my head, because there is truly so much to my One Direction journey of being a fan to working in the music industry and everything that kind of happened in between up until present day time, because I am still experiencing One Direction themes. This fangirl has the lore of all lores. And so for those of you guys who are not familiar with me, hi, I'm Jen. I'm a music industry executive. I've been working in the music industry professionally for over a decade now. I've worked with over 100 artists at all levels. I have worked with artists who've charted #1 when I'm working with them, but I've also worked with some incredible local bedroom pop stars. I specialize in management, label work, such as like marketing, general release strategy, social media engagement, audience development, and fandom building, basically. And so I love marketing. I love fans as a fangirl myself. And how I got interested in that work was because of One Direction. I don't know if I want to start there though. I kind of want to take it all the way back because I think context is really important. So you guys can understand like how I think surreal my life has been, because while I am focusing this episode on One Direction, this is truly the beginning of my music industry story, like how I got into the industry. And yeah, this is a really big episode for me. Maybe I should have done a little bit more preparation, but in true Gemini fashion, we're just gonna blabber and wing it and see what happens. If I have to do follow-up episodes, and so be it. I'd love to talk about One Direction in like 20 more episodes, like let's keep the conversation going. So when I first heard of One Direction, it was actually in 2010, I believe. I remember hearing about them, I think even before they were done with X Factor. I was a massive Cody Simpson fan when I was younger. And you guys are probably like, Jen, how does Cody Simpson have anything to do with this? He doesn't necessarily have anything to do with this. But I started a Twitter account and it was dedicated to Cody Simpson. It was basically my first Twitter account, my first fandom that I was in. And I was a hardcore Simpsonizer. I think that's what our fandom name was. I can't remember, but I was a hardcore Cody Simpson stan, right? And I remember just tweeting nonstop about Cody and trying to get things trending on Twitter for Cody. And I remember seeing some trends about One Direction at the time. Now, I did have a mutual friend who was a fan of Cody, who then started posting about Harry Styles. And I remember looking him up at the time and being like, he's not that cute, girl. What do you see in him? I'm just being honest, right? And so I became familiar with Harry before I became familiar with like the full band. I don't think I really dived into One Direction when I first heard of them. I was just like, again, curious about Harry, Googled him, and I was like, he's not my cup of tea. And so I did not really think too much about One Direction. However, around end of 2011, I basically got canceled within the Cody Simpson fandom for more reasons than one. That is also a different podcast episode. I think I talked about it in the first or second episode of this podcast, literally episode #1 or episode #2. And then again in Cody, Alyssa, and Justin, where I interviewed my fangirl friend Alyssa, who was also a massive Cody Simpson fan, and Justin Bieber. And so I talk a little bit about that time in my life on those 3 episodes in particular. However, like I said, I was basically canceled at the age of like, gosh, I think I was maybe 11 or 12 years old, maybe older, maybe 12 or 13. I'm going to say around 12 or 13. And yeah, I was canceled. And so when I became canceled within the fandom, I was like, I'm going to take a break from fangirling. I ended up converting my Twitter account from a Cody Simpson fan account to a personal account. However, I still had friends that were within the Cody fandom. And one of my really close friends at the time, she ended up introducing me more directly to One Direction. She was sending me their countdown videos for What Makes You Beautiful. For any of the OG fans that remember that one, they literally did like a countdown trailer to when the What Makes You Beautiful video was going to be released. I remember watching the trailers and be like, these guys are actually like pretty cute. I still was not a Harry girl. Spoiler alert, I never became a Harry girl. The one that caught my eye was, take a wild guess before I say it. Any guesses? Comment below your guesses. Liam. I saw Liam and I was like, heart eyes instantly. I thought he was just the most like gorgeous human. He could sing. He seemed just so like soft, sweet, and nurturing. For those of you guys who remember like the stereotypes that they gave the One Direction boys, Liam was like he was the leader, but he's also kind of like daddy direction, where he kind of had this like father energy where he was like very, again, like smart and soft and sweet and like very nurturing. And I laid eyes on Liam and I was like, holy hell, like you. And honestly, at that time, I was so shocked to hear that so many girls, because that was at the time their primary demographic was young girls, teenagers and children to some extent. I was just surprised that Liam was like one of the least favorites at the time. It definitely seemed like Harry and I think Zayn were up there. But for me, I was like, what are you guys talking about? Liam is right there. And then, of course, because there's five of them, I didn't have just one favorite. Eventually, my second favorite was, any guesses? Any guesses? I already spoiled it a little bit, but like, I mean, not really. I guess I didn't really spoil it at all. What's your guys' guess? Louis. I was a Louis girl. I was a Lilo girl, you guys. I loved me some Lilo. I don't know what it was about Liam and about Louis specifically. I mean, kind of like Louis. I just thought he was really funny. And here's the thing though, guys. When it came to like fangirling, whether it was One Direction or Cody Simpson or any of the artists that came after, I was never really like the fangirl that was like, my God, I want to marry them. I'm going to date them. That's like my future husband. I think I was a little bit like Delulu like that with the Jonas Brothers when I was like 8 years old, like 7 years old. I was like, Nick Jonas, I dream about him, and like writing fan fiction about him in class and when I was in school. But with Cody, I think maybe a little bit, but like not too much. I would write fan fiction, kind of. But with the One Direction boys, I never felt that like they're my husband, I'm going to marry them. What really like made me a fan of One Direction, especially at this early in like their career, because at the time when I was getting into them, they hadn't even released their debut record Up All Night yet in the UK. Because for those of you again who know One Direction, y'all know Up All Night was released in London in the UK first before it was released in America. I think by like a couple months. And so at the time they had already done X Factor, right? They had done X Factor, and there was still just so much noise online about them as a band that we were still getting content. It's kind of crazy to look at 2010, 2011 to 2026, where it's like everyone is putting out so much content like 24/7. Like if you want to be an artist, you're not just an artist, you're also like building your own media empire to some extent because of how content heavy is for musicians. But also I guess any industry where you need like a lot of visibility. And looking at like 2010, 2011 of fandom culture, we were getting content, but a lot of it was coming from like TwitCam. I think that was the live stream. And then their tweets, you guys. I don't even know if Instagram was around in 2010 or 2011. I don't think so. Oh my gosh, I feel so old. But I just remember really getting into One Direction content, like watching a lot of YouTube videos, scrolling a lot on Tumblr. Yeah, we'll get into Tumblr, just not quite yet. And truthfully, I think part of what made me so much of a fan of One Direction was not just them as artists, was not just the music. It was like the lore around them. Like One Direction was even so famous before their debut record out that people were writing stuff about them online, posting clips from their live streams. It was just really easy to fall into the One Direction rabbit hole at that time because, again, there was so much content to consume. So much content to consume that even the content in 2010 and 2011 is still going viral on social media in 2026, which again shows you the power of One Direction, but also like the power of content and how it truly never goes away. Isn't that an internet safety lesson? Y'all definitely got to listen to Cody's Just in the Alyssa because we talk about internet safety. I've had a wild fangirl life, you guys. So yes, One Direction, What Makes You Beautiful comes out, and it's like it almost feels like overnight celebrity. I don't know if that's how they felt, but for me, I think that's how like quick I fell in love with the band. So much that when the debut album Up All Night came out in the UK, I ordered it from the UK. I literally ordered from like the UK merch site and I ordered a One Direction t-shirt. In fact, it is the t-shirt that I am wearing today, but the wrong one. I did not order this t-shirt, you guys. I can't remember what t-shirt I ordered. I think it was the cover art. I could be wrong, but they sent me the wrong shirt. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's like, I remember Fetus One Direction. I hope that's like not inappropriate to say. I'm trying to like, let me see if I can get a little bit of a close up. Yes. Oh, wait. Liam, Harry, Louis, Zane, Niall. I'm so sad, you guys. I miss them. I really miss them. Yes. So I ordered a shirt. I ordered the album. I got the album and they sent me the wrong shirt. But I knew damn well it took a lot of convincing to let my mom even order me this stuff from the UK, let alone the fact return this shirt to ask for a new one. I knew that was going to happen, so I sucked it up and I kept it. But now I think it's kind of iconic because I probably have one of the earliest One Direction pieces of merch of all time. I don't even think they sell these anymore. At least I haven't seen anyone ever really wearing this shirt. So I do think this is like their X Factor. Sure, I could be wrong. Maybe not officially the X Factor. I think it's a little bit after, but I have not come across another person who has owned this shirt. I'm sure those of you out there may own this, and if you are, send me a picture. I'd love to see you rocking it. But yes, this is my Fetus One Direction shirt, not the one I ordered, but it's honestly one of my most cherished pieces of merch that I have from any artist. And honestly, given the fact that I still fit in this many years later, and I actually think it fits me even better now, I'm like, iconic, right? So I remember when Up All Night came out, I was just so excited. I got my shirt, I got the CD, I was listening to it nonstop. And I think around that time, there was a campaign, and it was actually, I'm pretty sure it was an official, like One Direction adjacent campaign where someone on either the label or their management team was trying to like gauge like if they had interest in America. And the campaign was called Bring 1D to the US. I think that was it. And it was a Twitter account. And basically they were trying to see like where should One Direction come when they eventually come to America? Like where are they doing shows? Where's the most like loudest fan base? And so for those of you who don't know me, I'm from Colorado, kind of we'll get into that part soon. But at the time I was in Colorado. I'm in Colorado right now. And I just remember being like, oh my God, I have to tweet them nonstop because I need them to call into Colorado. And so eventually I changed my Cody Simpson account to, which then became my personal Twitter account to then it became a One Direction fan account. I could have that timeline a little bit messed up, but I think it was around 2011, around Bring 1D to the US when I converted my account again. And I basically threw myself into the One Direction fandom. You guys, I just remember tweeting that account. I think I started like two or three Twitters trying to like tweet them to come to Denver. And it was so crazy because I remember meeting fans online who were from Denver, including some that I am still friends with to this day and often see at some of our fangirl shows, which is, it's just so bizarre to know that I've had friendships within fandom for that long. And it was crazy because some of those fans that I ended up meeting would, like I said, become lifelong friends, but also fans that I would eventually try to stalk One Direction with when they came to Denver. Because yes, and I know I'm not the only one, and I'm getting a little bit too far into the timeline, but for those of you guys who understood and were a part of fandom culture from like, let's say 2010 to about maybe 2016, going to artists' like hotels and waiting outside of like their location, wherever they were at, just not their homes, was like appropriate. Kind of. I think around like 2014, at least for the One Direction boys, fans were starting to realize like, hey guys, we should not be waiting outside their hotels. But that wasn't always the case. Like when you guys watched the movie One Direction, This Is Us, which came out in 2013, I think it was like July of 2013. The only reason that I know that is because I had my show around then. They showed you guys like thousands of people. I think it was in Italy or was it Spain? I can't remember. But like where there was like at least 10,000 people outside of their hotel. That was how famous they were. Okay, fans thought it was. But like I said, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Let's reel it back in. So by the time early 2012 rolled around, One Direction was becoming even more popular pretty much across the globe, right? Even some of my like Cody Simpson friends were starting to get really into them even more. And again, they hadn't even officially released their debut record in the US yet. I think it came out around like March or April of 2012. I could be wrong, but I do remember when they came to America, they were doing a bunch of like meet and greets where it's not like a full blown like meet and greet where you're like taking a picture with them. That happens eventually. But like for this specific promo, it was like they were all seated and they were just doing like highs and buys and signing the record. And honestly, I really do think them doing that was a catalyst for them building across the globe, but especially here in the US, because people were getting content from that, you guys. People were saying, oh my God, I met Zayn and he called me pretty and then he asked me for my phone number. Like people were coming up with those type of stories. However, I did not go to any of those. Again, you guys, I was like probably at this point 12 or 13. I think let's say 13. Yeah, maybe 14, 13, 14. No, 13. I think 13. Doesn't matter. And I also live an hour away from Denver, the capital. They did not come to Denver, but I did not have access to that. I could not just fly there. I could not really just go to these meet and greets. I wasn't old enough. I couldn't drive. I was not able to travel around the world. I was too young. I could not drive. My parents did not have any money. My mom was a custodian. My parents were also going through a divorce at that time. And truthfully, without getting into too much detail, because this is not the episode, I was honestly going through some really, really like traumatic and hard times in my life. And again, I can't get into it on this episode, but the chaos that was happening to me as a young child, I was coping with it through fangirling online. And as cliche as it sounds, like One Direction truly did save me. I can't imagine what my life would have been like if I did not have One Direction as like my end all be all at the time when I was a teenager, because there was a lot of honestly like traumatizing stuff happening in my life at that time that would end up shaping, my life into the foreseeable future, that I became so like fascinated with One Direction, them doing the like signings, the meet and greets with the fans. It gave us so much content. Like the one that I'm seeing in particular is them. I'm seeing Harry in like a green jumpsuit. And I just remember like those clips going viral, like as viral as it could in 2012 social media. Like this is not even the existence of TikTok, but yet it was still like reading the masses across the globe. And so when the album came out in America, it was just like, it's about time. Like, where have they been? And it's even crazier to think that they were releasing this in like normal stores, like Walmart, Target. Like, you could go into an actual store and buy the record, which is very different. And I call this out now because in modern times, modern music industry, artists don't really have their albums out at stores. Like you can probably buy Harry Styles's album, his vinyl, but I'm not honestly not too sure if we'll be able to buy the rest of the boys in stores at like a Walmart or a Target, maybe like a Barnes and Noble, but I'm not totally confident we'd be able to find the rest of them at like Walmart. And it's so crazy because truly labels in 2026 only take artists to like actual physical stores if there's like a massive demand. Like you can't just go viral for one song on TikTok. They want you to know that you have like a fan base worth at least like 1 million people. And I don't know exactly what those numbers are. I'm using 1 million as like an exaggeration to put it into perspective, but truly you have to be a massive artist to have any type of album in physical stores in 2026. And so the demand was high in 2012 because they did release the One Direction album there. I don't even think I think Spotify was barely coming up around that time. because I do remember listening to One Direction a lot on Spotify. I did buy all the albums. However, I do remember getting to Spotify through one of my best friends, which another story for a different day. I have a lot of side stories. Something else that was happening to me around that time in terms of like One Direction lore was I was getting really into fandom culture, like when I was in the Cody Simpson fandom, I would consider myself a little bit of like a micro influencer within that fandom. I did not know that at the time, but in 2026, where now fans are kind of like famous within fandoms, I was definitely a micro influencer within Cody. However, when I switched to the One Direction fans, they did not care. I think on my personal fan account had maybe like, I think at one point the most was maybe like a little over 10,000 followers, but there were fan accounts out there with like 50,000. They did not care about me. And so I was like, integrating myself within the fandom, trying to make friends. And it was honestly a little bit hard to make like fandom friends in the One Direction, I guess, fandom at the time. And I did end up meeting a lot of people eventually, but it was a little bit of a rough patch. And so I spent a lot of time reading fan fiction. And this is going to be a little bit of a controversial part of the episode. And so bear with me, you guys, because yeah, just bear with me. In 2012, I did get really deep into fan fiction. However, I was not, let's read One Direction fan fiction about YN falling in love with Liam or with Louis or with any of the other boys. I was a Larry. I was a hardcore Larry fan, you guys. I believed in Larry Styleson. And honestly, I think Larry Styleson was a big part of why I continued to be so like fascinated with One Direction throughout my teenage years, is because I wanted to know, are Harry and Louis dating? Are they together? Is this real? Because the compilations that fans would put together of evidence that they would have to support the fact that Harry and Louis were like in a relationship was outrageous. It was incredibly convincing. Like, I'm talking, people were matching hairlines, they were looking at tattoos, they were tracking like second by second interactions. Like, they were analyzing the smallest looks. They were hacking security cameras, not just for Larry, but just in general. Like, there was so much going on within the One Direction fandom. And I fell deep into the Larry rabbit hole, like very, very deep. I believed in Larry. I 100% thought it was real. And honestly, I did think it was real for a good part of my time in the fandom. I think around 2014, mid 2014, when Harry started dating Kendall Jenner, was when things were starting to click for me of maybe this like isn't real. But up until 2014, I was pretty convinced like Larry was real. And I read so much Larry Styleson fan fiction, you guys. I do have to credit Larry Styleson for being part of my like gay awakening. I don't consider myself gay. I am pansexual. I don't know if I've ever said that on the podcast, maybe, but I am pansexual, and I do very much look at Larry Styleson as being like my understanding and opening my eyes to other sexualities, even if they never said anything, even if they never discussed our sexuality. I was just hardcore in the Larry fan base, and I was like, wow, I feel like I understand what's going on. And then pretty much from there, I dated nothing but women. That I don't know if I've ever said on the podcast, but that is my truth. I ended up dating a bunch of, not a bunch, but I did end up dating like girls, and up until this point have really only dated girls. And so it's Larry Styleson was just a part of an interesting journey in terms of my sexuality. And I know that episode is not really about this, and so maybe that'll be a different episode or like a TikTok or something. But that's a massive part of my identity and my story as a fan. And like I said, I think without Larry and without the lore around the One Direction members, I don't know how much I would have like stayed a fan. Because while I did enjoy the music, for me, it was always so much more than just the music. It was literally the stories around them, the culture around them, and then finally making friends who were also just as invested. I think around 2012 and 2013, I started getting into role playing. And I don't know if I've ever talked about this in any of my podcast episodes. And I feel like some people are going to look at me sideways for this. But I was a role player, you guys. Like when I really started getting into Tumblr, which I think was also around 2012 and 2013, there were like role play groups where you could like audition. I mean, like when I say audition, you would write paragraphs, sometimes like pages, essays worth, and you would submit it to an audition process where you would apply to be a certain character. And I'm not kidding you guys. Fandom culture was so insane and honestly one of my favorite times in my life back then because not only were the fan fictions amazing, so much that some of these fan fictions are now being made into movies, right? I'm waiting for some Larry movies. Oh, I don't know. Louie and Harry would love that. Probably not a good idea, but there were some really amazing Larry fan fiction, you guys, that could have been like, in my opinion, like best-selling books because of one, how popular they were, but also how incredibly well written. Like this was before AI, you guys. I tried to write my own Larry fanfic and I don't think I got past like chapter 2. I could not do it. It was too much. But yeah, lots of amazing fan fiction. And then fan fiction naturally led me into role playing. And I really got into role playing on Tumblr and Omegle or Omegle. I'm not too sure even to this day how to pronounce it. And for those of you who do not remember Omegle, it was basically like this anonymous like chat site. You would basically just go onto Omegle and it would connect you to a random person. Eventually you could add like hashtags. And I would just like put in like One Direction. And then that's when I like kind of realized like what role playing was. And again, to put it into perspective, at least let me define role playing because I started going on about Tumblr role playing, but like role playing in general is where you're pretending to be another person, but it's not like catfishing. Catfishing is where you're like, okay, I'm going to pretend to be like Zayn and I'm going to catfish fans and be like, hey, I'm Zayn. Like I'm in One Direction. No, role playing is where everyone knows you're not the person behind the picture. Like you are a character. It's basically like writing a story with other people. And I did not realize that the skills I would build from role playing would eventually lead me to understanding like branding for artists and how to embody a persona or energy. And I really do have to credit the role playing days for that skill set that I have. Because I would, again, now going back to Tumblr, when I got into Tumblr role playing, oh my God, it was kind of like an addiction. Because something I failed to mention to you guys is I eventually became homeschooled. I think I was in seventh grade or eighth grade when I became homeschooled. So I think One Direction was barely starting to come up. I don't even remember what year I became homeschooled, you guys, but I know One Direction wasn't super popular. They were like just getting popular. So this was again, maybe around 2011, 2012. And I became homeschooled. So when I say homeschool, I don't mean like my mom was teaching me. I was like in an online school where I was learning on the computer and all of the answers were like on Google. So did I kind of cheat my way through school, high school in particular? Yes. Yes, I did. Different story for a different day. So homeschool jungle freak over here gets into Larry, falls into like One Direction role playing, falls into Tumblr, and my entire life has changed at that point because I am like meeting friends online. I am like auditioning to play different characters. I remember playing a Louis character, which ended up introducing me to one of my like closest like fangirl friends who is still a friend from this day. She actually lives in Alaska, which is so crazy. And me and her ended up befriending each other. I was Louis, not Louis. He had a different name. His name was Elijah. And my friend was a Demi Lovato character with a different name. And we just ended up becoming like besties. And it was just so crazy because like when I say like I was Louis and she was Demi Lovato, just know there were celebrities from like musicians to actors to even like YouTubers at the time. And all of them were coming together to form different role play groups. Some you were like in high school, some you were like in universities, other role play groups you were like famous, but like not them. But it would be like I'm using Louis' face, but his name is like Derek. I never played the Derek, I don't think, but like it's kind of like that. And so these people who would create these role play groups would essentially like write bios on these people being like, okay, this is Elijah and Elijah has this type of personality. This is his background story. And then you would have to submit an application. And I'm not kidding you guys. This was so popular at the time that sometimes some characters would get up to like 50 applications. I know that sounds crazy, but especially when One Direction was popular, it was really easy to see like a Harry Styles or a Zayn character get like 50 applications. And then, of course, the other characters would get applications as well. But then only one person out of the 50 applicants would get chosen for that character. And it's like, wow, you must be an amazing writer, or the people like the creators of the role play must love how your take is on the character. It was truly just so life changing. And again, very much was introducing me to like branding for artists without even realizing it, because I really started to understand like how to embody other people's energy, how to embody different characters. I feel like this is a very taboo conversation. And I honestly don't know of any other person who's talked about this into this detail. I know Addison Rae did an interview last year when she was promoting her debut record, and she talked about like, I think, catfishing people as Harry, but she didn't really get into it. And so I'm like, I'm right there with you, girly. I was role playing. I think I probably role played all of them at one point in time. But I really, in particular, loved role playing as Liam. I don't know why. I always loved Liam, though I would kind of go back and forth with Harry and Louis too. But I think my biggest one was always Liam, and then a little bit of Harry. So yeah, that is my side note on the role playing. Let's get into 2013. I think the only thing that I failed to mention is how I also found out about Ed Sheeran was because of One Direction. I met Ed Sheeran because of One Direction, you guys. Like, Ed was blowing up in the UK, and I only talk about this a little bit because it's a big part of my story. I ended up meeting Ed when he opened for Snow Patrol, and he came to Denver, and I was not old enough to get into the show. And I still went to the concert anyway, not to the actual concert, but I showed up to the concert and I waited outside the venue. And Ed, he did come out to greet us because there was a handful of my fangirl friends. I think there was less than 10 of us, maybe like 7 or 8 of us. And after his set, he came and chatted with us. Uh, and he met us outside and he chatted with us for about 20 minutes. He even went to his tour bus and gave us his Legos. And it was so surreal because I do remember one of my friends asking him about Harry, which is really funny. That we were trying to talk to Ed Sheeran about Harry Styles. And it's just like, wow. But that ended up becoming a major part in my career, because when I was really getting into Ed Sheeran, I think I was even listening to him before his debut record came out. I was just like, wow, this guy is so talented. I remember listening to, If You Need Me, I Don't Need You. I think I asked Ed about is it Sunburn? I was like, what does this song mean? And he was like, it's about my ex. I was like, okay, thanks for the detail. Like, thanks. But I don't really consider Ed like an A&R discovery, but I do see Ed as someone who I was early on in terms of fandom, and I knew he was going to be a star. And it wasn't necessarily because of the One Direction friendship or his friendship with Harry. It was more so like I was a genuine fan of Ed, and I heard about Ed through like One Direction, the One Direction fandom, because he was buzzing and making some noise in the UK. But like when I became like a really big fan of Ed, it was because of the music that he was making. And genuinely, I look at that moment in my life and my like music industry career, and I'm like, wow, like you met arguably one of the most successful musicians of all time, one of the most popular musicians of all time, before anyone knew who he was. And it's even crazier because fast forward to now, 2026, I just saw Ed 2 months ago here in Denver, and he played here on the 4th of July. And he talked about that night that I met him. Granted, he did not say, and this was the night I met Jen. No, he did not say that, but he was like reminiscing on the first time he came to Denver and how he was having some mild success in the UK. And they were like, well, let's try to take it to America. It's kind of a tough nut to break, but maybe we can do it. And he went on that Snow Patrol tour with not really anyone knowing who he was. And it was just really crazy to hear that story from Ed's perspective, because I'm like, oh my God, does he like remember that? Does he remember meeting us? Like, he gave us his Legos, you guys. I don't have them here with me. I'll have to do like a TikTok or something, but I still have the Legos. I think it was like a Batman collection. And I think I got the Joker and then like the house. Just the most bizarre thing ever. But yes, now let's fast forward to 2013. And Oh my God, we're already 45 minutes into this. This episode is going to be way too long. How are we only in 2013? Okay. I'm trying to speed this up a little bit. So 2013 comes around and oh my goodness, it's just crazy because I was really hardcore into the One Direction fandom at this time. I was reading Larry Fanfiction all the time. I was role playing. I was on Twitter and I was starting to really get like interested in like One Direction update accounts. And why? It's because One Direction updates accounts were like the modern paparazzi. They were getting photos from the paparazzi. They were working with the paparazzi. And they were just posting basically what the One Direction guys were doing pretty much hour by hour. Like those guys could not go to the grocery store. They could not go to the gas station without getting photographed. It was a different time in like celebrity culture where the paparazzi, unfortunately, were still following celebrities. They were still getting in their faces. Fans, were chasing them. It was a lot. And so it was really easy to get content. Like those guys could not go anywhere without getting photographed and like hounded, for lack of better words. I think that time and how intense like the paparazzi and the fans were and just that fandom and culture in general is very much the reason of why they're a little bit keep us at a distance to some extent. And rightfully so. I can't imagine being in any of their shoes and experiencing that level of fame and that level of just chaos. It was a lot. Like I said, I could go to sleep and next day I was guaranteed photos of the members, whether it was them at the grocery, at the bar, jogging. I knew I was going to get One Direction content. It was just a matter of what are they going to do the next day? And I think a lot of us fans fell deeper into like One Direction because of that. Because it was like, my life is boring. I'm going to school every day, or for me, homeschooled. And it was just easier to almost like fantasize and project onto these celebrities because they were out and about and they had this amazing life and we were guaranteed content. And, when you have that level, when you have that access, have that type of access to someone's life, it just becomes very all consuming, It's so much more interesting than what I'm doing on a daily basis. I want to hear about how Harry is taking a jog in his photographer's neighborhood. Like that is how crazy it went, you guys. Like fans knew where people lived too. It was insane. So when 2013 rolled around, let's jump to mid 2013. I was so excited because they announced the Take Me Home tour. And that was pretty much my one and only time I saw all 5 of them. And my only full like One Direction concert. As crazy as it sounds, I was not the One Direction fan that went to 30 shows. I was not the One Direction fan that went to 10 shows. I was not even the One Direction fan that went to 5 shows. Like technically I saw One Direction twice. However, the second time I saw them was on Jimmy Kimmel, but the first time was here in Denver at I think at the time it was Pepsi Center. Now it's the Ball Arena. And that was my first and last full One Direction concert. And looking back, I'm so deeply grateful for that experience because now, see, don't start crying, we'll never have that experience again. And I remember the only reason why I was able to go to that show was because I ended up like stealing my mom's debit card and buying myself tickets. I tried to convince her to let me go to the Up All Night tour in Arizona. I had an online friend who lived in Arizona and we were buying seats and on the phone and we found one seat and like, I think it was on the floor somewhere. And me and her were like, well, maybe we can convince the venue to let us share a seat. Like it'd be totally fine. And I was trying to convince my mom to let me go to Arizona. And she's like, you're crazy. You've lost your mind. That did not happen. But I knew when I found out One Direction was coming to Denver, I knew tickets were going to be expensive at the time. I thought they were expensive. In 2026, now those same seats, my God, $800, I'm sure. But at the time, it seemed pretty expensive. And I knew that if I was going to go to the concert, I was going to have to do what I could. I was going to have to be sneaky about it because like I said, I don't come from money. My family has never really had money. And so I took my mom's debit card and I bought the tickets without asking her for permission. I just went online and I purchased a VIP. I was trying to get the meet and greet tickets. Unfortunately, they sold out and all I could get was sound check. So I was really blessed though, because I was able to get one sound check ticket. I was so mad I did not meet them. So mad because again, That's part of like the iconic One Direction legacy. Those photos from the Take Me Home tour are absolutely iconic. I am envious of anyone who got to meet them on that tour because not only were they like in their prime, like they were, I think, genuinely having fun and enjoying it. That's how I perceive it as a fan perspective. They may feel differently, but from a fan's perspective, it genuinely seemed like they were living their best life. They were having fun with the fans in the photos. They were doing wacky photos, funny photos. And it just seemed like such an amazing time in the One Direction fandom. Like 2013 was truly prime peak, in my opinion. Like they were on top of the world. And when my mom found out about me stealing her card, she was upset, but surprisingly, she did not get too mad at me because little did I know, at that age, it was also tax season. So she did receive her taxes. So I got a slap on the hand, but that was about it. She did take me to the show. And my mom's boyfriend at the time, he lived in downtown Denver. And so, um, I ended up crashing at his place. However, when the show happened, my cell phone was broken. And so I basically was not able to use my phone for a lot of the time because if I used it for more than 5 minutes, the battery was broken. It would stop working completely. And so when they came to Denver, again, they were so popular at the time that fans were like going to their hotels and they were meeting fans at the hotel too, for better or for worse. And so when we like fans started figuring that out, it was becoming very regular for like fans to try to figure out their hotel. And typically they would meet like the first couple of fans. And then once those fans like leaked the hotel, they wouldn't meet any more fans after that. So you always wanted to be the first people to find their hotel. And I ended up like working with a One Direction update account. And basically they were trying to help me. I wasn't my experience with that wasn't too great. They weren't very responsive. But I had other friends working with other One Direction update accounts. And so we basically were like teenagers running around downtown Denver trying to find One Direction because we thought they were staying in downtown Denver. And I remember we thought that we found their hotel and there was like a crowd of maybe like 50 girls. And there was people at the top of the hotel waving at us and we were screaming so excited. And it was not them. It was not One Direction. They were just making fun of us, I guess. I don't know. And so I was super sad because I did not meet One Direction. However, that was the day before the concert. The next day, I found out one of the girls that I was with ended up figuring out the One Direction hotel, which was not in downtown Denver. It was actually here in Boulder. And she went to go meet them without us. And so we were pretty pissed. I didn't know her personally. She was just part of like the group of 10 girls that we were like in. And she figured it out. I guess her One Direction update account figured it out and she went to go meet them and she did get pictures with them. And so to this day, I'm like, we were so close. If only she shared the tea, we would have met them. But like I said, that's not how the cookie crumbled. So the very next day, God, you know what? I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we go to that next day, that same day, Five Sauce was also here in Denver because this was when 5 6 of the summer was opening for them. And they were staying also kind of near Boulder and they were posting like Vines. I think it was Vines. Or was it Keek? Is it Keek? No, it was a Vine. It was Vine, I think. I can't even remember. But it was basically like pre-TikTok and they were going around the mall. And so my friends and I were like, let's go to the mall and try to find them. One of them could drive. And so we drove to the mall and basically try to follow Five Sauce, but they were posting the videos like pretty late. So we were just like missing them. And then they ended up staying at a hotel near the mall because now the very next day, half of the girls went to the One Direction hotel. The other half went to Five Sauce hotel. And I chose to go to the One Direction hotel, as did like 300 other people. Versus if I went to the Five Sauce hotel, I could have met them because my friends met them and they all got pictures with them. And I was so sad I did not make that choice. However, it's not totally the end of the world because when I was at the One Direction hotel, as soon as my mom pulled up, it was so shocking because as soon as I saw the crowd of like 200 girls, I was like, this isn't happening because yes, the hotel did leak. Like I said, you wanted to be the first fans to find their hotel because then they would meet you. But once people knew, they were not meeting anyone else. They were definitely not meeting 200 fans outside their hotel. And so I show up, I see the crowd and I'm like, I'm not going to meet them. This is 100% not going to happen, but I still stayed. And so, my mom went to go, I think she went down the street to a store while I kind of like lurked. And, girls were trying to get into the hotel. People were buying hotel rooms to get into there. And it was a lot of chaos. And so I was like, you know what? I'm not going to meet them. Let me just take a walk around the building because everyone was just camped out in the front. And I was like, this isn't happening. If I just sit here in the crowd, I'm just going to maybe see them get on the tour bus and nothing. So I ended up walking around the hotel, and lo and behold, you guys, it's going to sound so stalkerish, but I literally just walked around the hotel, and it wasn't even that big of a hotel. And I don't know why the rest of the girls weren't walking around it. I walked around it by myself, and I found Mr. Harry Styles swimming. He was swimming, you guys. Well, okay. First, he was on the treadmill, and basically there was like 5 of us girls, and unfortunately for Harry, the gym had windows, so we could see, and there was 5 of us girls. We were all standing outside the window, and the bodyguard was obviously irritated. They were like, Harry doesn't want to be stared at, so he's standing in front of us, and Harry's just like on the treadmill trying to pretend that he's not jogging with fans in front of him. And I'm so sorry, Harry, if you see this. I'm sorry. I know you've had your boundaries crossed many times, my friend. I'm not my friend, but like, you know what I'm saying. I'm so sorry that I participated in that when I was younger. But yes, I did stay and watch Harry Styles jog, because then after he was jogging, then he went into the swimming pool. And you guys, I have to go check my old cell phone, because like I said earlier, my cell phone was a little bit broken. But I have to go find that phone to see if I still have the photos, because I think I got a photo of him. It's been many years, so who knows if that phone even works. But yeah, I gotta watch him jog, and I gotta watch him like swim. And he didn't swim for very long. He did like a couple laps, and then he went straight in because they had a show that night. They had a meet and greet, which I was not going to. I was going to sound check. And so after I saw him, I like freaked out. I went back to the front, and then maybe, an hour later, I think Harry got on the tour bus. I don't really remember seeing the other guys. I just remember seeing Harry. And I think he had like a animal thing on his head. And then he went on the tour bus, and then that was it. It was like it was done. And I was like, well, I gotta go. Even if the other boys have already left or not, I have to go to sound check. And so, I get in the car, we go to sound check. I'm telling my mom, I think Harry's posting on Instagram. He's at like a sushi restaurant or something, and go to sound check. And I just remember being so like shocked, because I think I was like row 5. I think I was row 5. I was really close, you guys. And I just remember seeing them at sound check and being like, I was in row 3 for sound check. I think I was in row 5 was I row 3? I don't even remember. I was really close for sound check, but I know I was row 5 for the actual show. And it was just crazy, like seeing them. Like, I don't remember too much of it. I remember a little bit. I remember being excited, but I was never like the hardcore screaming and crying. I was never that fangirl, like, ever in my life. I always was a little bit more of like, keep your cool type of fangirl. And so I was excited, but to be honest, I don't even remember it too much of what they said. I do remember they sang Best Song Ever, because I think the music video was about to come out, but it hadn't come out yet. So it was like cool getting to hear like a snippet. Or did it come out? I can't remember, but I know it was around basically like that same week that Best Song Ever came out, the music video. And yeah, we just ended up being really stoked. And I know, at one point, and I don't remember this, but there's photograph evidence of it, because Harry took a picture of the crowd and then he posted it on Instagram and said, did a show, nobody came. And I am dead center in that photo, you guys. That is my claim to fame. I am on Harry Styles' Instagram, dead center in the middle, just looking so excited in the show that apparently they did and nobody came to. It was just sound check, but he was being funny, right? And so that is part of my long One Direction lore, is ending up in that photo on Harry's Instagram. Truly, truly iconic, even to this day. And the show was amazing. Five Sauce came on and they did incredible. I think I got more photos of Five Sauce because I think by song 3 that One Direction performed, my phone died and I could not turn it back on. And I was a 14-year-old at a One Direction concert by herself. And my parents knew where to pick me up. And, they picked me up at the gas station across the street. I walked over there with other fans, not my friends, but I used like some stranger's phone to call my mom. And they picked me up, and that was like my One Direction experience. I know we got merch. I think they gave us a t-shirt, but to be honest, I do think I got rid of that t-shirt, which I'm so sad. I wish I kept it. I really, really wish I kept it. But yeah, they gave us merch. I think they gave us a tote. I can't quite remember, but and so that was basically the one and only time I saw One Direction. I do remember, I think I thought Louis waved at me, but I hate to be that person saying he waved at me, but I could have swear like Louis waved at me at one point. But like I said, Louis is probably waving at everyone. It was just truly so wild. And I'm so grateful that I got to experience that I got to see all of them together. And honestly, just so devastating knowing that we will never see all 5 of them together again. But I want to save that conversation for a little bit towards the end, especially because I've been going on for an hour and I haven't even told you guys about how many parts of this episode are going to be. I did not want this to be longer than like an hour. I'm just blabbering. We're just going to keep recording. So around 2014, I was starting to really get into One Direction update accounts. So much that I decided I wanted to join a One Direction update account. And so there was a One Direction update account that was actually looking for people to come on and join them. And so I submitted an application and lo and behold, they accepted me. And so basically in that time that I was, not even that time because I still have access to that account even now, but you guys, like, as soon as I joined, I was so like passionate about it. I was playing games with the fans constantly, whether it was send me a picture and I'll ship you with one of the boys, or come ask me a question on like the anonymous, was like Curious Cat, something like that, the Q&A sites. And I'll give you guys like my One Directional opinion or share your One Directional opinion with me or something like that. And I just played a lot of games with the fans. And of course, I would post the photos regularly. I would update with credit because that was always important. We always get to give each other credit, whether it's this update account or this paparazzi, because like I said, the update accounts were like basically their own paparazzi. They would get insiders, basically fans, where they were local to wherever the boys were at the time. So I have the hiccups. If the boys were in like the Philippines, all the update accounts would have insiders at the Philippines because our goal as an update account was to help our insiders meet the boys. So then we would get credit for the photos and everyone would have to tag us, which would then get us more followers. And so I started getting really into that concept again, and of course, still posting like the updates of whatever photos came out. And so, like I said, I joined a One Direction update account. I think I helped 2 fans meet Harry. I don't think anyone else met them, but I did help 2 fans meet Harry in California and Los Angeles at a bar, as crazy as that sounds. And yeah, it ended up working out for them. And so I'm stoked to know that I was like 14, 15 in my childhood bedroom and I was able to make someone else's dreams come true from my childhood bedroom. I don't know. It's crazy stuff. But the more that I engaged with the fans, the more that I started building with them and playing games with them and, just really cultivating a community, the update account was growing so fast, you guys, like extremely, extremely, extremely fast. So much that we grew over 100,000 followers in like less than a year. I think by end of 2014, 2015, that account was close to like 250. It was really crazy how fast that account grew. And I definitely cannot take all of the credit. Eventually, it was just me and one of my co-owners, Celine, and me and her basically just tag team it. She's one of my friends that lives all the way in Paris. And so shout out Celine if you see this episode. And, we love them. And like I said, from 2014, I was really into the update account, but I think by early 2015, as I think I was becoming a senior in college and about to graduate, I was kind of getting over it. It wasn't really like I was not a fan of them. It was just exhausting. And sometimes it just felt like, one, I think the boys themselves weren't really willing to be seen in public. They were having, more stricter boundaries, which is fair and absolutely reasonable and well, as they should. But I think the One Direction fandom was changing a little bit. I think a lot of us were getting burnt out from content and from posting. And a lot of us were also growing up. And I also think the One Direction boys, they were going through their own personal changes within themselves as a group, but also how they showed up in public. they were a little bit less open and more so, and I don't want to say it this way, but I'm just going to be very direct. I kind of felt like it was more so by like end of 2014, 2015. It was kind of like a job they would clock in and a job that they would clock out of because it was so intense all the time that I think they were starting to put blinders up to not necessarily their fans, but more so like the chaos around them. Like they needed more stronger boundaries and they were not afraid to enforce those. And so there was a lot less updates. And then you add on the fact that Zayn left the band, which was so crazy. I remember I found out through a Twitter DM from one of my friends. He was freaking out about Zayn. And that was like fangirl apocalypse. Everyone was having a heart attack. It was truly so shocking, so devastating. And while I don't really remember that full day, I do remember finding out about it. And I don't think any of us really saw it coming because I do think Zayn was actually pretty good at hiding it. And I know there's been a lot of stuff that's come out now about how it all happened with another member of the band wanting to basically start a solo career, which we all assume is Harry. And then Zayn found out and he was like, no, not today. It's going to be me. He's the first one out of this. And none of us were thinking about it that way. Truthfully, I think from my perspective, I think when Zayn left, I thought it was more of like a mental health thing. And I think there was some stuff going on with like his personal dating life and stuff that it kind of just seemed like it was too much. I don't think for me it clicked of that there was like a rivalry within the band. I don't think I thought that. I kind of just thought fame was too much for him and he was having like personal life stuff. But now we know the tea, to kind of, right? And so, yeah, that was truly a life-changing day in the fandom. But definitely around 2014, 2015, I was starting to realize I wanted to work in the music industry professionally. And I've always known I wanted to be in entertainment basically since like High School Musical, Hannah Montana came out. I was always like, I want to be the pop star. I want to be the actress. But I knew pretty early on, like when I was in middle school, that it was going to be hard to become like the star of the show, like the ultimate star, the ultimate like, you know, celebrity. And I was like, you know what? I want to be the person behind the scenes because One Direction was so popular at the time that I thought I could market them better than their own team, which is so delusional. But that was literally my mindset when I was younger of I want to work with One Direction and I want to market them and I know I can do better than their like management and label, which is again delusional. But that was the mindset I had and my goodness, that mindset ended up working out for me. And so when One Direction went on their hiatus, I think a lot of us kind of knew, at least for me, I kind of knew it wasn't going to be a hiatus. I kind of never believed it. I was like, this is the end. But I did have hope they would come back. To be honest, looking back, I do think I thought they were going to have a reunion sooner than later. I didn't think it was going to be it's 10, 11 years now. I didn't think it was going to be over 10 years. I thought maybe 5 years at most. But I didn't, I never truly thought of, okay, they're coming back and doing like this whole like band thing forever. Like maybe like a one-time gig or like something like that. I didn't think 10 years would pass and we would never get a single One Direction show again. Like even in like talking about that, it's still shocking to me that it still hasn't happened. But given everything that's happened in the fandom and the more that we've learned about what they were experiencing at the time, it makes sense. But when I started college in 2016, I basically kind of stopped posting on the update account and I really haven't posted on the update account like that since then. I try to do a little bit of here and there, but not really. I just wasn't really into it because when I started college, I was like, I'm going to be in the music industry. I don't know how I'm going to do it, especially because I'm not a Nepo baby. I'm from a cow town in Colorado. Luckily, I do have an uncle that lives in Los Angeles, and that's actually a massive thing I forgot to mention to you guys. That basically, when I became homeschooled, I started living back and forth between my hometown in Colorado and Los Angeles. However, despite me living in LA half my life, I wasn't like actively finding the One Direction guys. Like, I think, I didn't even talk about Jimmy Kimmel. Oh my God, there's so much. And I'm looking at the time and I'm like, how long are y'all actually going to listen to this? Because we haven't even gotten to like the actual music business side. Oh my God. I don't know. Should I do a second part to this? No, let's just keep it going. We'll see how much we can get. But yeah, what I was going to say, why I do want to bring up Jimmy Kimmel, because this is going to go back to 2015. This was like the end, like some of the last times we would ever see One Direction as a group. I was in California, and I think it was my senior year of high school, and they were going on Jimmy Kimmel to promote the last record. And I did not have tickets to it. However, I lied to my uncle and told him I was going to go bowling with my Cody Simpson friend, Alyssa. I was going to go bowling with her, and I was going to stay the night at her house. So basically, me and her coordinated. She was not a One Direction fan. And I was like, hey, girl, can my uncle drop me off at your house? And I'm going to Uber to Hollywood Boulevard and spend the night there because Jimmy Kimmel was the next day. I think they wanted people there at the venue by like 3 or 4 p.m. I was going the day before at 10 p.m. I was like 16, 17, going to go camp out on Hollywood Boulevard by myself. And I know that sounds crazy because it was crazy, but I also knew I wasn't going to be alone because despite the fact that I got there at 10 p.m. after I gave my friend cookies and then Ubered from her place to Hollywood, there was already 50 girls, you guys. I remember getting like our fan wristbands, and I think I was like 50 something. And that's why I was comfortable. I stole 2 of my uncle's towels, and I used one to put on the ground and one as a blanket. And then I put makeup in my bag. And then I think I had like a portable charger and called it good. And you guys, he still doesn't know that story till this day. Like I want to tell, I'm going to tell him eventually. But yeah. And so I camped out on Hollywood Boulevard, and, lo and behold, the next day, Jimmy Kimmel's team did not honor the fan line. So people who got there at like 2 p.m. were in like the first row, despite, because I think honestly, by 2 p.m. the next day, there was at least a crowd of 1,000 of us, and they were not honoring our fan made line. They said their line did not start till whatever time. And so people wanted to stand in front of us, and they were going to let them, and they did not care. And people did it. So I could have showed up at like noon and still got the place that I wanted to be at. Because I think by the time we were let in, I was second or third row, and I was so stoked. I think I had mostly Harry and Liam on my side, and then I think it was eventually Niall and Harry. But craziest experience, and that was the last time I ever saw like One Direction as a band. And I think they did like 3 or 4 songs. But it was so crazy because I remember being at Jimmy Kimmel, and I remember spotting Mike Navarra. And I bring up Mike because he was the publicist for One Direction at Columbia Records. And Mike basically was my inspiration to getting into journalism, which now leads me into college because I then went to school for journalism. And the only reason I bring up Mike, I guess there's a couple of reasons, is One Direction was so famous at the time that we knew who their team was. We knew who Mike was. We knew who Paul, the security guard, was. We knew like Cal, the photographer. We knew the band. We knew multiple security guards' names. Like we knew so much about One Direction. Like you could not be around those guys without the fans knowing who you were. Especially on a regular basis. They probably knew your address. They probably knew your family. One Direction fans were stalkers, you guys. Back in the day, we were hardcore stalkers. And so when I was at Jimmy Kimmel, I saw Mike, and I was like so gagged because I was like, that is who I want to be when I grow up. I want to have Mike's job. And so yes, he was a publicist, and that led me to getting into journalism. Because when I went to university, I did go to university in my hometown because, as I mentioned earlier, my mom was a custodian, and basically because she worked at my university, I could go to my university tuition free. And that has been one of the most blessed things I've had in my life. One of my biggest gifts, because I don't have student loans, and my entire, college degree was paid for by the university. And so when I went to college, I actually wanted to be like a music business major, but they would not let me be a music business major because there was a performance requirement, meaning I had to be a singer or play some sort of instrument, and I could do neither. And so unfortunately slash fortunately, ended up majoring in journalism, where then, that's where I really started getting into like PR and advertising and like media. And I'm trying to keep this really short and sweet because again, we're so deep into this episode. But basically, like throughout college, I had a couple of goals. I knew I was going to take advantage of the fact that since I was getting my financial aid and I didn't have to pay tuition, I'd save my financial aid money to go do unpaid internships in Los Angeles while staying with my uncle, because the music industry is notorious for unpaid internships. So I would save that money to go do internships in LA And basically every semester from my sophomore year to when I graduated college, I would do 2 internships at the same time. I know that sounds crazy, but like I said, I knew I had a dream. I knew I wanted to be in music business. I knew what background I came from, and I knew I was going to have to fight and give everything I had within me to be able to accomplish my dream. And so it was interesting though, because when I started interning, my first internship was at a music management boutique in the Hollywood Hills, and my internship boss, she worked out of her home. And let me just tell you guys how gagged I was when I pulled up to the internship on the first day and found out Louis was basically her neighbor. He lived in the same neighborhood. I could drive my car 5 minutes down the street and be at Louis's house. And you guys are probably like, how, Jen, how do you know where Louis lived? Everyone knew where Louis lived at that time, you guys. Like I said, One Direction guys had no privacy. They had no privacy. They were publishing the houses they bought, the address. Like, it was really bad. And so I knew where Louis lived, and I was so gagged when I found out that management company was literally down the street. I was just like, this is so bad. And I'm like, please don't ever let me see him like walking his dog or something. Or like, I never let me see Louis going on a jog when I'm going to my car because I will have a heart attack. And he will probably call the police being like, this girl is stalking me. And then I'm going to have to say, no, I interned down the street. I interned down the street. That never happened. And I was as respectful as I could be given that knowledge. Because if I'm being completely honest with you guys, when I started interning in the music industry, I wanted to bury my fangirl past. I did not want anyone knowing any of this about me. I did not want them to know that I was a fangirl, that I loved One Direction, that I had a One Direction fan account. I did not want anyone to know. And to be honest, again, I did not tell anyone about my fangirl roots until about a year after college. I kept that secret to myself for about like 5 years. I didn't even like posting them on social media because something that I think is really interesting about the music industry is we do a lot of networking through social media, through like Instagram, through Twitter, and I guess now through TikTok. And I kind of like removed myself from the One Direction fandom. Even from their solo careers, I did follow along. To be honest, I didn't love any of their debuts. I did not like Harry's debut. I remember being like, this is too Elton John. Harry, like, getting Find Your Own Sound with Sign of the Times. I was delusional, you guys. I was delusional. I didn't really like, I think Pillow Talk was okay with Zayn. I remember Niall, I think he debuted his song was it This Town? I can't remember. Niall's first song when it debuted on Radio Disney. And I just remember being like, Niall, grow up already. Like, it's so embarrassing. So embarrassing. But like, that was my mentality. I thought it was embarrassing being a One Direction fan. I was just like not into it. Like, when they broke up, I really did separate myself from the fandom. I stopped posting about them. I still, like I said, followed along a little bit. But I was like, I'm grown now. I'm going to get a career in the music business. I don't need anyone thinking I'm like this crazy fangirl, because the day that I work with One Direction is going to be the day where I really worked for it and it wasn't built on me crying and screaming about them. Because truthfully, I thought screaming and crying about them would never get me a career. Fast forward to 2026, now artists want to hire their fans. We're living in some wild times, right? So I'll keep this part a little bit short and sweet because, like I said, I did so many internships when I was in college. I did over 10 unpaid music industry internships from management, label, publishing, networking, live events, media. Like, I did a lot, you guys, and I met a lot of incredible people, which, ended up, again, being the foundation to my career to some extent. I did one internship though that really had me gagged about One Direction, because that was in the internship where I got to hear all members' solo demos. And when I say solo demos, I don't mean it's like the very first song, but I think I can say it now because the song is out. I heard Lights Up, the demo version, before it was out, like a year, I think, before it was out. When did that record come out? Did that come out during the pandemic? I can't remember. But like, I heard that before the pandemic, you guys. Craziest thing. I've heard Louis' song about his mom. I heard the demo version for that one. I heard Niall, another demo, which hasn't come out, and it featured actually another male pop star. I can't remember if he was on it. I'm not going to say who because it never came out, but I heard that demo. I did hear one of Leo's demos that I don't think came out either. And then I did hear a Zayn one, but I can't remember what Zayn song it was. I just remember Harry Styles' song like really gagging me because I was like, what is this? I don't know how much I can talk about. I don't want to get sued. Yeah, the demo was interesting. And then I remember hearing Just Can't Let Her Go, like the full song before it like officially leaked. I heard the full song of that. I did not leak it. I did not leak it. I would never leak it. I would never leak anything. But I heard that full song and my goodness, you guys, when I heard that song for the first time, I was really shocked because I did not expect it. They were basically having me like clean up some stuff for some like songwriters. And, they were like, can you just like go through these songs and like label them? I was like, okay, sure. And I clicked on it and all I hear is the intro. She's so mean. And I kid you not, I was in the office and I was like, do not start crying. Do not start freaking out. Keep a straight face. Keep a straight face. Because all I could hear was them in my ear. And I was like, are you serious right now? I'm hearing One Direction unreleased demo. Bizarre, you guys, like so beyond bizarre because I honestly could not believe I was hearing that. Like it felt like I was, what is that saying? Icarus? Why can't I say his name? I felt like that where I got too close to the sun and burnt. And got my wings caught on fire because like, what do you mean? Like at this time, like 3 years ago, I was running a massive One Direction fan account. And now I'm hearing all 5-member demos and unreleased One Direction music. Like, what is my life? This can't possibly be my life, but it ended up being my life. And I look at that time as like, wow, like you had no idea how any of this was going to unfold. Like I said, there was a lot of other things that are not really relevant to One Direction. However, I do want to call out a specific situation where I guess maybe 2 more situations within this time frame during the internships, because I had a friend that lived in Hollywood and she moved to LA and basically she lived right off of Hollywood Boulevard. Like, I'm not kidding. There was Hollywood Boulevard and her apartment was like down the block on one of the side streets. It was like, we could walk to the stars, the Hollywood Walk of Fame within minutes. It was so easy to access. And me and her really liked to party because there were some 18 up clubs around. And me and her were not old enough to get into any clubs, but we like to party and we like to go dance and we like to, talk to people and hang out and just be, chaotic teenagers. And one night we were going to do this whole thing. I was going to Uber to her place. And then we were going to go to a show with 2 artists that I was a fan of. And I was friends with one of the people in the band. Don't really keep in touch with him now. And that was Play Royale and Bones UK. And I knew one of the members of Bones UK. And we went to their show and it was just so much fun. It was so good to see the show. And we were like, okay, we didn't want to go home yet. It's like 11 o'clock, let's go to the club. And so me and her, we went to the club, but while we're on our way to the club, it's also around Halloween time. And, we started seeing some Halsies throwing a Halloween party in downtown LA because Hollywood and downtown LA are 2 separate things. For those of you guys who do not know LA, downtown LA is not Hollywood. Downtown LA, honestly, is not like, at the time, not really the place you want to be. And I don't even think in 2026, it's really the place you want to be either. And so we're like, we're not going to Halsey's party in downtown LA when we don't even know if we can even like get in. Like, we're not just going to show up and like wait at the door. Cause of course there are going to be famous people coming out, but like we look too good. And also we're not in a Halloween costume. Like we're dressed for the concert. We're not dressed for Halsey's Halloween party. And so we went to the club. We hung out at the club for like an hour. And honestly, it was awful because we were like so over it. So we were like, you know what? Let's just Uber back to your place. Let's go to Mel's Diner. And so we ended up going to Mel's Diner and me and her are, we're eating at like, I don't even know, 1 a.m. And she finds a penny in our booth. And she picks up the penny and she's like, you know what, Jen? Because we actually connected over One Direction. I forgot to mention that. She was one of my One Direction fan friends from online. And she picks up this penny and she's like, this penny is going to help me meet Harry Styles one day. And so I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. And so we're like going online on Twitter, and there's still update accounts at this time, believe it or not. And there's this like Harry update account. It's like Harry, he's dressed as Elton John at like this Halloween party in Hollywood. And we're like, well, if only Harry was at Halsey's Halloween party, maybe we would have went. I don't know. So we basically are like, okay, we're done eating Mel's Diner. So we start walking back to her apartment because, again, she was so close. And we get a notification on Twitter, and it says Harry Styles spotted at a diner. We look at it. It's the same effing green as Mel's Diner. Me and her look at each other like, you can't be effing serious right now. We were just at Mel's Diner. You're telling us that Harry is at Mel's Diner? We booked it back to Mel's Diner. We're like, I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know what we're going to say. Go back to Mel's Diner. We go back. He's not at that Mel's Diner. He's at the one also 5 minutes down the street. Because again, if you guys know LA, there's like 2 Mel's Diners between Hollywood and West Hollywood that are like 5-10 minute drive from each other. And so we're like, go to the other one, go to the other one. We get there, boom, one paparazzi, and there's like maybe 3 or 4 fans there. Now, they're not inside the restaurant. They're just waiting outside. Me and her kind of look at each other like, what are we going to do? We technically have a Mel's Diner box, so maybe we could go in, but we also didn't dine in at this Mel's Diner. But also, we can't just go up to him while he's eating. That's completely inappropriate. We understood that at the time. And also, like, yeah, like we cannot cause a commotion because Harry wasn't just there by himself. He was there with Cindy Crawford, Kaya Gerber, his manager, Jeff Azoff, and then like some other people. Like this was not a Harry's there with one person. He was there with like a group of people. And, you know, we knew like, we're not going in. It's inappropriate. We're obviously cannot go up to him. Like if he wants to stop, he'll stop. And the paparazzi's like, oh, I've shot Harry many times. He's actually a very nice guy. He'll definitely stop to take photos with you guys. So me and my friend are like super gagged. We're like, oh my God, we're about to meet Harry Styles. Like, this is insane. He's in his iconic Elton John costume. And we're just like, this is crazy. Cause what do you mean an hour ago you picked up a penny and said this penny's going to help you meet Harry Styles? Absolute insanity. So we wait there, and then I think maybe like 30 minutes later, they come out. And honestly, we did not really meet them because he did not stop for any of the fans. He just walked right past us. And I was the one at the very end of the line towards the car. And so I guess that's where the paparazzi got the most photos of him, because tell me why I'm in almost all of the fucking photos of the paparazzi photos of Harry getting into his Escalade when he was dressed as Elton John. And so I'm like, you know, I'm in a little bit of my hot girl fit. I'm like, I have my phone up like an idiot. But I was just like, oh my God, what do you mean? I am here and Harry Styles is 2 feet. Like I could have put my arm out and like touched his shoulders. I did not do that. Again, at this time, fandom was a little bit different. I wasn't a part of One Direction fandom hardcore anymore, but the understanding of like fandom and boundaries and how to interact with artists, it was changing. I think especially also when BTS was becoming really popular around this time as well, people knew like, you don't do that anymore. You don't stalk them at their hotel. You don't chase them. You let them like kind of come up to you. And so, you know, and I was also grown enough. I was like 19. So I knew better. And yeah. And so that is how I ended up in People's Magazine with Harry Styles, because just to fast forward many years later in 2022, we're jumping timelines, but I'll jump to 2022 just to keep this story going. In 2022, I get a call from my niece one day, and she starts screaming, and she's like, "You're in my magazine with Harry Styles!" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And then she holds up the photo of me and Harry in the People's special edition Harry Styles version that was on Stan. For 2 years, you guys, I was in that magazine with Harry for 2 years. I'm so blessed that they put a good photo of me. I'm so blessed that I ended up looking somewhat decent in those paparazzi photos, because they ran with those photos. And I'm just like, wow, one, how much money did that paparazzi guy make from that? But also like, what do you mean I'm in People's Magazine with Harry Styles? You guys, so much of my life has honestly just been very like, I feel like random and faded because I never would have thought that that entire night would lead to meeting Harry Styles and then that photo being in People's Magazine for 2 years as like one of his most iconic looks. And I'm like an idiot in the background. Oh, there. I can't even believe it. And truthfully, when it came out in when that happened in 2018, I had told my friend, because I was trying to get my friend that I was with, like, she wanted to like also be in the music industry. And I was like, do not tell him, because I was getting her into an internship that I was working at. And I was like, do not tell anyone. I don't want anyone to know about this. Like, I don't want people to know I'm a One Direction fangirl. I don't want them to know about these paparazzi photos with Harry. Do not post this, because some of my network was following her. And I was like, do not post this, please. And she was like, Jen, I'm so sorry, but I just met Harry Styles. I'm posting it. And I'm like, girl, please, please, please do not do this. I was still able to hide it. I think she cropped me out of it, but I was just like, this is not happening. And like I said, I mean, I got my karma because fast forward many years later, like I said, there's no hiding that for 2 years, not when it's being sold across stores nationwide. Like, I'm still in awe. And I feel like that's truly one of the most shocking things to happen to me in general, but also like just with my One Direction lore. I'm like, wow. Like, first time she sees One Direction ends up in a photo on Harry's Instagram, dead center. Next time she like sees, I guess I see, I don't know. It's just weird. I'm trying not to make this an astrology episode, because I know a lot of people who are listening to this probably aren't into that. But I guess given the fact that this is my podcast and I can do whatever the fuck I want, I'll talk a little bit about astrology. Both Harry and I are Libra risings. If his birth time is accurate, me and him are Libra risings off by 1 degree. I'm a 27-degree Libra rising. Harry's a 28-degree Libra rising. We are also air sign stelliums. And this is going to sound so parasocial, and I really don't mean to be parasocial. I'm just trying to give you guys context of how, I don't know. It sounds weird. It feels weird and creepy and stalkerish just saying it. But like, put me and Harry Styles in the same town and we're going to end up at the same coffee shop. Put me and Harry in the same building and we're going to be in the same room. Like, and it's not by it's not by like, oh, I'm orchestrating it. It's more so it just happens, because there has been other instances like that, including one that just happened last month where me and Harry ended up in the same place, like not planned. I did not know he was going to be there. Obviously he doesn't know me. So he didn't know I was going to be there. Like, it's not like that where I'm having a conversation with him, because spoiler alert, I still don't know the One Direction guys. I've never met them. I've never had a conversation with them, but the lore just keeps on luring. Okay. Now, one more thing about the internship. I did end up working with one of Zayn's songwriters. And he was actually one of my favorite songwriters I've worked with, because he was very kind and just he was a good person to learn from, because he was doing a songwriting camp, and not for Zayn. And for those of you who do not know, songwriting camps, basically a bunch of songwriters get together and they form like mini breakout groups, unless you just do like one, and they all try to write to like a same brief. Could be like, oh, this movie is looking for this type of song, write us a song, or this A-list artist is looking for a song, let's try to pitch it and see if we can come up with the vibe. And so I was working with this songwriter at this camp, and it wasn't for Zayn. It was for, I don't even remember what it was for, to be honest with you. But anyway, lo and behold, he ended up writing one of Zayn's songs on, oh my God, was it the second album? Why am I blanking? I can't even remember. So much time has passed. And I just remember being so gagged when I found out he wrote for Zayn. I was like, what do you mean you wrote for Zayn? Like, this is crazy. The One Direction lore doesn't stop. And then, another instance, I ended up working with the girl, her, and I think I can say her name because this is public. I ended up working with Kelsey Carter, and she was a girl that went viral many, many years ago for getting the fake Harry Styles tattoo on her cheek. I ended up working with her a couple months after that. And that was also crazy, just to kind of I didn't work on that campaign, but just to come after all of it had happened. That was also really, just really insane. Just again, the music industry is very, very small, you guys. Like, once you're in like mainstream music industry, you realize how small it is. Like, you are touching elbows with everyone who knows everyone. And it can be a lot. But yeah, so basically, when I graduated college in 2020, because yes, unfortunately, I did graduate during the pandemic, there was no graduation. And I was very blessed to get hired on at a record label as a project manager and then at a music magazine as like marketing manager. And I did both jobs at the same time. And yeah, I just ended up doing those things. I don't think anything too crazy about One Direction popped up during those times. However, fast forward to 2023, which is when I started my, oh wait, no. Oh yeah, I mean, I guess this can be like a side story. I'll give it like 2 minutes. Like around 2022, I was dating a girl and I took her to California. We went to Los Angeles together and we had just seen When We're Young Fest. And when we drove from Vegas to LA, we were going around, like I was just showing her around the area, like I know LA very well. Like I said, I've lived half of my life there. I have all my favorite spots. And so I was showing her everything. And I was like, okay, like let's go get ramen, I think in Brentwood. I think it was Brentwood. And then let's go to Santa Monica because she wanted to see the Santa Monica Pier. I was like, bet. And so as we were like getting into her car, she's looking online and it says, wait, she's like, Jen, Harry's doing a movie premiere. And I'm like, what do you mean? It was from My Policeman. He's doing a movie premiere and it's 2 blocks over. I'm not kidding you guys. I can't make this shit up. It was literally 2 blocks over. I can't remember what the theater it was. It was near, is it UCLA? I think it was near UCLA. And I was just like, so do you want to go to Santa Monica? And she's like, no, we are going to the premiere. So we pull up to the premiere. There's loads of people. I'm like, girl, I ain't even gonna find parking. So I let her go. I'm like, I've seen him before because I was also kind of in the mindset of, I won't talk about it too much on this episode, but I like have a love. I have a love-hate relationship with Harry sometimes for more reasons than one. Different story for a different day. But sometimes I was like jealous, I was just like, why does my girlfriend like Harry Styles so much? What about me? And it's so delusional, you guys. It was awful to be jealous over a celebrity. But that's just how I felt at the time. I can't even believe I'm saying that, to be honest. It's truly how I felt. And so I was like, just do your thing. I'll try to get pictures from the road if I can. And so she went over, she did not talk to him, did not shake his hand or anything, but she got like a picture of like the top of his head because there were so many people in front of her. And that was crazy. Like another instance where Harry just ends up in the same area as me. I don't know. Now fast forward to 2023. In 2023, I ended up launching my company, Gemini Baby. I started my podcast because I failed to mention in 2021, I did end up leaving the music industry temporarily because I was having what I call like a psychic spiritual awakening. I got into really like astrology, tarot cards. I was having like supernatural experiences. You have to go through my podcast episode for more on that. But like, I basically took 2022 and a little bit of 2023 off to figure out what the F was going on with me because I didn't understand how I was working my dream job in the music industry. I built my way where I was getting management position in the music business, working with some of my favorite, artists and really just, I thought I was doing it, but add on the fact that I was isolated in the pandemic. I had chose to stay in my hometown in Colorado because I was not going to move to LA officially and pay LA rent prices when the companies I was working for became permanently work from home. It was pandemic. So again, why would I pay LA prices when nothing is happening? I decided to stay home and save up to buy a house. But like I said, I started having weird shit happen to me. I was working my dream job. Again, you guys have to check out my other podcast episodes to hear a little bit more about my like spiritual awakening. But I left the music industry and then kind of returned in 2023, but I did it on my own terms. That is when Gemini Baby was born. Started my podcast, and basically within like the first 10 episodes, I reached out to Louis' press team for tickets, if they would give me review tickets to make a podcast episode about the show. Y'all, they gave them to me. I was so shocked. it was my like first press acceptance. And the fact that it came from Louis Tomlinson, I was like, what do you mean? Like, I have 10 podcast episodes out. At the time, I had maybe like 100 followers on Instagram. What do you mean you're giving me tickets to review your show? Little did I know that was going to be the most. The camera died, so I'm hoping I'm continuing in the right spot. But I had about 10 episodes, maybe a little less than that, released of my podcast. And lo and behold, Mr. Louis Tomlinson and his team gave me review tickets to go see him in Red Rocks of 2023. Like, what do you guys mean? Like, Louis has no idea I exist. I, truly am in shock because I probably have like 100 followers on Instagram, like barely any listeners. I, do not really have a platform at all. And for whatever reason, Louis' team gave me the ticket. And I was just like, it was honestly one of the best days of my life. I was in shock. I was truly over the moon. I could not believe it. I had posted on social media. And I was just so happy. And I was going to vlog the entire experience on Twitter and then TikTok and then make a podcast episode. But little did I know that was going to be one of the most traumatizing experiences of my life because the show did not happen. We got through, I think, the first opener or maybe both openers. And it started hailing, you guys. Red Rocks gave everyone in the crowd a 5-minute notice. A 5-minute notice to get to shelter, to get to their vehicles before it started hailing. And for those of you who've been to Red Rocks, y'all know that is not a 5-minute walk. That is at least a 15-minute walk down the mountain to your vehicle. I wish I ran into like a bathroom or something because I ended up trying to make it to my car and I did not make it. I got knocked out on my head multiple times, on my back, on my shoulders, on my arms. I ended up hiding underneath a tree, or I guess underneath a bush. And it was just one of the most traumatizing experiences of my life. I remember there were kids around me and there was a father trying to cover his children from the hail with like one of the street signs. It was just awful. And the show did not happen, obviously. 100 people went to the hospital. I ended up driving a fan to their hotel in downtown Denver. Probably wasn't the best decision, but I did. Given the fact that I was hurt, car got totaled, windshield was completely cracked, cars were being towed out of it. It was the best day ever, quickly turned into the worst day ever. Fortunately, I did end up seeing Louis again just 2 months ago here in Denver, June 2026. Took 3 years. Unfortunately, they did not give me tickets to review. I had to buy my own, which is totally fine. I was hoping they were going to pull through given the fact that I was there and was supposed to review the show, but that did not happen. And honestly, despite that, it was still such an amazing experience. I took my niece this time. That first time I went by myself. This time I went with my niece and I just couldn't believe it. My niece, she is 17. And she has been a secret fan of One Direction. She lied to me when she was younger, when she was a baby about liking One Direction, but then she was secretly listening to them. That was her secret. And, just to hear Louis sing, because we've seen Louis, Zayn, and Niall together. Now we have Harry. And it was just a really special moment for me just to be able to see Louis for the first time since 2015. And again, Red Rocks, despite me not getting tickets from his team again, I was just happy to have made it and that there was no hail because we did deserve that. Shout out to the Louis who went in 2023 and came back in 2026. We deserved that. It was an amazing night. The weather was beautiful and it was just so, so special. And I really enjoyed having my niece there because it just made it was just a full circle moment. But yeah, and then I think the last like crazy like One Direction thing I have from like my music career, because this ended up being more about like my One Direction lore and less about like my time in the music industry and like my roles and the work that I've done. But around 2024, I was working with an artist who went really, really viral and had a really big moment where basically every single label was hitting us up. And lo and behold, I did hear from Harry's team, which was insane. One of the assistants called me, and I was very honest with the assistant about my One Direction lore. I let him know, hey, I'm a fangirl first and foremost. You guys should know that about me. And then I had, Columbia Records call me too, and I got to talk to them about Mike Navarra being like, this is the most full circle moment of my entire life. Have not met Mike yet, have not spoken to him, but the A&R got a big earful about how Columbia Records is like, one of my dream labels when I was younger to work for, and I wanted to be in Mike's role, and he's still there. So, but you guys, I think that is no. There's still more. Oh my God. I'm trying to keep this short and sweet because I know I've been going on for a long time. I do want to talk about Liam. I said at the beginning of the episode, you guys, I was a Lilo girl, but Liam caught my heart first and foremost. And honestly, his passing has been one of the most devastating things that I have experienced in the music industry. But I also think kind of just in terms of like grief in general in my life, I've dealt with grief, but not like this, I think, which is kind of crazy. And it's probably the most parasocial thing ever. But I think other One Direction fans, other Liam fans understand that when you lose an idol, it truly is like losing a family member. And I didn't mention this in the earlier the episode, but Liam ended up following the update account. I tweeted him and I could not believe he saw it. He followed us. And that was truly shocking. But I want to talk a little bit about Liam because this is part of my One Direction journey. And I was a little bit hesitant to include this on the episode because nothing is official, nothing isn't set in stone. So please take this part of the episode very lightly and just know, like, if at any time it seems offensive, if it's too much, if I'm crossing boundaries, whether it's with the fans, with Liam's family, with the One Direction boys, I will happily remove this episode and re-edit it or whatever I got to do. But when Liam passed, I was actually about to do an astrology reading for one of my favorite artists. And it wasn't on a podcast. It was just like a private consultation. And I found out about 20 minutes before I was supposed to do the reading. And I was like, literally like my family member passed away because I was getting messaged by everyone. It was truly the most shocking thing. And I don't want to talk too much about that, but I didn't really talk to you guys too much about, like I said, my work in the music industry. I mentioned it briefly in the beginning, but I've worked with over 100 artists, you guys. I've done management, I've done label, I've done media, networking, live events. Like I've done a lot. And while this episode is focused on One Direction, I truly have a love for music. I have a passion for music. I love music business. I really want to see others succeed. I don't believe in scarcity mindset. I believe there's room at the table for everyone. And so my heart literally hurts. It's kind of crazy. When Liam passed, there was a campaign started called Liam's Law by a fan on Twitter. At least that's how I found it, was on Twitter. And this petition started gaining traction very quickly. And so I went on my update account and I reached out to this fan. And basically since then, I've been helping this incredible fan, shout out today, they see this, build Liam's Law. And I say build very lightly because there is nothing official in the works. There is nothing set in stone. Full transparency. We have not been in contact with Liam's family. Kind of crazy. I kind of feel like I have a connection to every single member of One Direction except Liam, as strange as that is. And I'm not strange. I guess that sounds a little cocky, but that's just how the cookie crumbled, you guys. And, we respect Liam, we respect his family, and we understand how tragic all of this was for the fandom, for One Direction, the family, the community, but also like music industry and pop culture in general. Like losing Liam was truly devastating. And that is something that I have been working on with this fan behind the scenes, doing my best to get it into the appropriate ways through the right respectful channels. And it still has been something that we're still navigating. And I do want to talk about Liam's Law because Liam's Law is not necessarily supposed to make assumptions about what happened or what was the cause of death or point fingers to anyone, but it's more so to encompass the fact that so many young entertainers, and as I'm recording this, we just had Hayden Panettiere pass away a couple days ago, but there's so many artists and entertainers in our, just performers in entertainment who are struggling with fame and the way that they were brought up in fame and the repercussions that have come after because of fame. And I truly believe that whether it's Louis, Hayden, really any other young performer, there has to be safety precautions in place. And so Liam's Law's goal is to make sure that we don't ever have a repeat of this. And I'm not, again, trying to make any blames, make any assumptions, but it's really to focus on the fact that Hollywood isn't totally safe. I've had my fair share of morally compromising and at times in scary experiences in my career. And while I'm not going to get into that on this episode, it happens and it happens way too often to too many people. And it's just really disheartening. And so Liam's Law's goal is to provide for protections to artists, specifically, like I said, in the music industry. And so there is a campaign called Liam's Law that's on change.org that has, I think, a little over 150,000 signatures. And we are doing our best, like I said, to get it into the right appropriate hands, to the right appropriate channels. And so I highly recommend for anyone that's watching to please look up Liam's Law. What we have on there is not permanent. It's not set in stone, but just by having your signature, by having your petition means you stand with us as we build this out. And honestly, something that you guys should know about me is when I went to school, I didn't just study journalism and music. I studied public policy, business, and sociology. I interned for the local government while I was in college. That's like I said, different story for a different day. I've been into politics. I've always been an advocate. Since 2016, the US election, I was very vocal then. I'm still very vocal now. I just want to live in a world that I'm happy to live in. And I understand that's idealistic. I understand people have different opinions and some people may find me extreme. Some people may not, but I just don't want to see any future young entertainers being taken away from us through what could have been prevented. I want to have preventive measures. So again, what Liam's Law currently has up right now is not the final form. It's not the official form. It's not the approved form. And honestly, it could change. It could take 10 years to get this type of legislation in place, especially because I'm American. Day is from the UK. So getting this type of law enforced across the globe is a battle in its own right. But I'm a firm believer that when people understand their power as a collective, sky is truly the limit. Like we have so much power as individuals, yes, but definitely when we come together. And so again, if you guys are interested in safety for artists, please look up Liam's Law, sign the petition. Like I said, it will likely change, but we do have a rough draft of what we anticipate this could be. And we're hoping to have updates for you guys. Who knows when? I'm not the official spokesperson for Liam's Law. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. Please pay attention to Liam's Law social media. It's not super active because, again, we are trying to be respectful. We're trying to be appropriate, but also there's still a lot happening within everything with Liam, and I'm in it for the long haul. I know the music business, the music industry is my life. I don't love the politics of it. I don't love how Hollywood is orchestrated and the powers that be. I'm not into that. But as someone who's consciously chosen to build their career on the independent side and still be very successful doing that, I'm still a firm believer that change is possible. And change really does start with us recognizing that we have the power to implement these changes, but it can't just be one person. We need many people to come in and support this cause. And so when the time is right, I'll have more information for you guys. The most that you guys can do is to share the petition, sign it, keep it in the back of your mind, follow the social media accounts, and we'll do our best to provide you guys updates when it happens. But rest in peace to Liam Payne. You were, like I said, my favorite member from One Direction right off the start. I would not have my career in the music industry without Liam, without the other One Direction boys. It's really crazy. And just kind of reflecting on that time in my life to where we are in 2026, never would I've ever guessed we would end up in this place. But I wouldn't change any of it because it really did lead me to where I'm at now. And I guess the only thing I would change is we would still have Liam, but that's out of my control. I'm thinking more so with my life. But I miss Liam every single day. I never met him, never known him. Like, wow, there's even stuff actually about that, but I'm not even going to talk about that. Sorry, you guys. Like I said, there's too much lore to your girl regarding the One Direction members. There's just way too much. But I truly hope that one day, my biggest wish is that we get a One Direction reunion as fans, even if it's like a one show. I was hoping they would do maybe like a mini tour, like a 10-date tour. At this point, I think we'll get lucky if we get one show. I'm still hoping that happens. I'm still manifesting it. I've seen all of them except Liam now. I've seen all of their solo shows. I saw Harry when he would love on tour. Niall when with the show. Louis just now. 2 months ago, Zayn during his Vegas residency. Um, I'm a lifelong Directioner. I love them so much. And while I did have a lot of ups and downs in terms of like my One Direction lore and the music industry and some, college, like kind of boycotting them out of my own ego, I can say in 2026, I look at them and I feel so much love for them. And I have think a bigger understanding or a better understanding of the bigger picture here. And the fact that I'm able to go from, crying about them in my childhood bedroom to having one of their, team members call me, it's just like the most surreal thing to ever happen to me. And I don't take it for granted. I'm so grateful. And a big part of this episode was also to inspire you guys to chase your dreams. I know that's cliche, but I really do believe we are not only living in the era, but will continue into the foreseeable future, seeing artists start to work with their fans. While, many of us may or may not work for One Direction, who knows what could happen in the future. I do believe if you have a dream about getting in the music industry, just start the fan account, start reaching out to artists, get involved in your local music scene. So much is possible. Yeah, I'm gonna end my like One Direction lore here and shift to the end of the episode. Like I said, you guys, this has just been the craziest journey, and I kind of feel like I'm missing some things. I'm hoping like I didn't miss anything too big. There's a couple of things that I missed, but I'm not gonna go back. So that just means we'll have to do a follow-up conversation or something. Or maybe I'll drop some lore on socials, who knows? But if you made it this far, drop me the the number one, and then put D. I don't know, just put 1D in the comments, you guys. Like 1D. I want to know y'all made it. 1D. Yeah, just so crazy. I really miss Liam. I feel like I was so sad because I knew I was going to talk about Liam at the end of the episode. And it's just like, I feel like I can never say anything that would be like, that would summarize like how I feel and how much he has impacted me and how much he has changed my life. Like, I don't want it to end sad, but it's kind of ending a little bit on a sad note because it's like that is losing Liam truly felt like losing a brother, losing a best friend. Maybe that's a best friend, a best friend who doesn't know we exist, but like a best friend at that. And it's just, I really hope that Liam's Law can make a change in the industry. Even if Liam's Law ends up not being Liam's Law and comes under a different name, you can't deny that fans want to see a change in the industry with that many signatures, which Liam's Law is one of the biggest music petitions of all time. People want to see a change. We don't want to see any young entertainers leaving us so early. Like, it's heartbreaking, and I feel like I'm just trying to say more, and there's really nothing more to say, but just know my heart's in it, and I'm going to fight and continue to do what I can to bring this change. And I'm not, I'm just me. I really look at you guys to help push this. Again, not an official spokesperson for Liam's Law, but it is in my heart, and it's one of the most cherished projects. Not even a project, one of the most cherished. I don't even know how to describe it because it's so important to me, but I feel like project just sounds like it's another gig, and it's not a gig. Like, this is changing lives. This could change a law. Lots to think about. I should have probably had a better way to word this, but I'm just being very authentic with you guys. I want to see a change. I want to be a part of that change, and I want you guys to be a part of that as well. So again, rest in peace to Liam Payne. We love you. We miss you. And I know you're there with the fans. So at the end of every single Gemini Baby episode, we recommend songs to our listener. Given the fact that this is my solo episode, I'm going to be recommending six One Direction songs right off the bat. Of course, I can't play the songs on this episode, so go to your favorite music platform, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, whatever that looks like, CD player, vinyl, and you can check out the songs. But I'm assuming for those of you watching this, you already know the songs, but jam out with me. The first song I would like to recommend is from their debut record, Up All Night, because yes, we are going in order, and I'd like to recommend Tell Me a Lie, because it is an absolute banger, you guys. That is one of my favorite songs from Up All Night. Like, I know Kelly Clarkson wrote it, and you can hear the Kelly Clarkson influence, but my goodness, it is still one of my favorite 1D songs. Like, this is why we need the reunion. I want to be able to jump up and down and be like, tell me I'm screwing this. Though I think out of all One Direction songs, if they were to sing that, I'd be pleasantly surprised. The second song I would like to recommend is Irresistible by, of course, One Direction from Take Me Home. I was really torn between what songs to do for Take Me Home, because I feel like after we get past Up All Night, like, the rest of the record are like, it's so hard to choose your favorite because every album has multiple bangers. But I feel like when I was thinking about what songs I wanted to recommend, Irresistible was really standing out to me. I feel like that's one of their underrated hits. Like, irresistible. Like, I don't even remember all the lyrics, you guys, but I just hear it in my head and I'm like, take me back. I want it to be 2013 again. I want to just like go cry about One Direction and listen to these songs and fangirl online, not have to deal with like adult problems and paying bills and the reality of just being an adult. And sure, life wasn't totally great then, but sometimes I'm like, man, I would take it back to live those moments again. The third song I'd like to recommend is Alive from Midnight Memories. Now, I want to recommend Alive because it is one of my favorite songs from Midnight Memories. Like, when I first heard it, I was like, oh my God, I love this song. But most importantly, I do feel like this is one of like Liam's song. Like, he has the lead vocals on it and his voice is just to die for. And I knew I had to have a very special Liam moment on this episode because it's Liam, you guys. Of course we do. I love Alive. It's just such an amazing song. Like, hey, it's all right. Does it make you feel alive? Like, I can hear his voice. Oh, I miss him so much, you guys. Like, we are in the worst timeline. I hate this. I truly hate this. The fourth song I would like to recommend is Stockholm Syndrome from 4. Again, I was really torn between what songs to recommend, but I was like, just go with Stockholm Syndrome because I feel like that kind of represents how I felt a little bit in college with them, where I was like boycotting them. I don't want anything to do with them. I don't want anyone to know about my fangirl like roots. Like, do not post the paparazzi photos. It's a crazy life, you guys, but it's also a banger in general. I love Stockholm Syndrome. Just fantastic. Another underrated hit. The fifth song I would like to recommend is What a Feeling from Made in the AM. I was like, wait, what's the album called? Made in the AM, right? Yeah, Made in the AM. Okay, I was really torn between this and If I Could Fly, but What a Feeling is, again, another underrated hit. I honestly feel like if they did a music video and really pushed that song to radio, it would be massive. Like, in my opinion, as big as like Night Changes. It's just so cool. I love that they were like really starting to mature in their sound at this point. Granted, we have half my age out there, but like, this was a hit and I really felt like this could have been something very special. And so, you know, if they ever do the tour, this better be on the set list. Out of all songs that I'm recommending today, What a Feeling better be on it. I'm so sad, you guys. This is where I'm like, now I'm going to start crying because it's like, when is the reunion happening? Is it even going to happen now? Because for those of y'all who follow One Direction in 2026, like the individual members, they don't give us that much hope. They truly do not give us that much hope, but it's okay. It's all right. I mean, I'm blessed that I got to live it in real time. For those of you who do not get to live it in real time, I am so sorry because y'all truly missed out on some of the most amazing years. And then the last song I would like to recommend is I'm actually going to throw it back to Up All Night. And I was really torn because this is my last song recommendation, but I want to say Moments because the lyrics, you guys, it just makes me think like, if we could only turn back time. That is truly how I feel for so many reasons. Like, I owe One Direction so much. If I did not have that fan account and realize one, how good I was at building fandom, but like also thinking I was going to market them better than their team, I don't know if I ever would have went that hard on the music business. Because like I said, I'm not a Nepo baby, do not come from a privileged background. If anything, I come from like the extreme opposite of privilege. And, you know, my biggest blessings was getting my tuition paid for from school and having an uncle who lived in LA because I was able to make my dreams come true through that. So I guess that was where I was really privileged, but I really still had to fight for everything I had. And if I didn't have One Direction, I don't think I would ever had that realization of this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And given the fact that I am 28 years old now, not 30 quite yet, almost, but not quite. And I've been able to have a lot of massive career accomplishments and work with so many incredible artists. I really owe One Direction a massive thank you for their work, for really raising an entire generation and then some with their incredible talent, with their personalities, with their quirkiness. And while I understand at times it was a lot for them and a lot of times a lot for us as fans, you cannot deny the influence, the cultural impact that One Direction had on so many people across the world. Like truly, they go down in history as one of, if not the most successful boy band of all time. Like that impact was otherworldly. And while I think we've been close to seeing it being replicated, we haven't really seen that type of phenomenon really replicated in recent history, recent time. So One Direction, it truly felt like it was a one-time thing. And I'm just really grateful to have experienced it. And like I said, just thank you to Harry, to Louis, to Niall, to Zayn, and of course to Liam for everything that they've done for us. I doubt they'll ever see this podcast episode. Never say never, but I'm like really, really doubt it. I still have to say thank you. And I still have to express my gratitude just to put it out there into the universe because I don't take it for granted. I'm truly some core memories, some of the best memories I have as a teenager when I was going through a lot of shit in my personal life as a kid. One Direction truly saved me in so many ways. And I know a lot of you guys who are watching this feel the same way. And it's cliche, but it's also the truth. So shout out One Direction, Directioner for life. I love you guys. You are amazing. Thank you so much for everything. The episode is not ending here. For those of you who are new here, I do pull a collective affirmation for every episode. I basically give my listeners some positive words to leave with. Here I have my affirmation cards, my favorite cat calls card. No, I do not have a cat. Yes, I'm planning to get one, hopefully next month. Okay. Universe, please give my listeners a motivational card, a collective affirmation. What do my listeners need to hear? Let's see. Okay. Wow. Okay, what's going on with Gemini baby listeners? The card is let all that negativity melt away. Ooh, hopefully you guys can see it. But yes, that is your affirmation. Let all that negativity melt away, you guys. Let it all go. I don't know how more direct it can be. Like whatever negative feelings that you are feeling, let it go. And actually notice this cat has a towel on its head. It has some cucumber on its eyes. Self-love, baby. Go do some self-care. Go wash your hair. Go do like your favorite skincare routine. Go put on a face mask. Go book you a spa trip, actually. That is the universe's message to you. Interesting. I don't know why that one came out, but We're going to take it. And you guys, I do want to give you guys a preview of next week's episode, which is actually going to be a little bit of a continuation of the One Direction episode. Not fully, because we're focusing on one member. We are doing a Louis Tomlinson fan episode. Yeah. Now that episode is actually going to be very short and sweet, but when I went to Red Rocks this last June, 2026, right? I interviewed his fans before the show and basically asked them, why are you a fan of Louis? What has he done for you? And my goodness, you guys were just so unbelievably sweet and so kind. And I'm really excited for you guys to hear the interviews. So I'm not going to spoil it too much. We're going to end it here. So stay tuned for next week's Louis episode. Oh my goodness. Okay. Bye.